The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of Claudette Hauiti.
Mr. Speaker, this question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, how will the budget next week help to lock in the benefits of sustainable economic growth to support more jobs and higher incomes for New Zealanders?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, the budget next week will set out the next steps in the government's program, which will build on the good economic momentum that New Zealanders have seen over the past year or so. It will show growing fiscal surpluses through to 2018, starting with a small surplus in 2014-15, and show debt beginning to decline as a percentage of the economy. Together with households and businesses, the government will continue its program of policy that supports the delivery of more jobs and higher incomes. And we're seeing positive results. Employment is rising across the board. Wages on average are increasing ahead of the cost of living. Interest rates are near 50-year lows. The current account deficit is less than half what it was 6 years ago, and consumer and business confidence is high. And also last week, we heard exports in March had passed $5 billion for the first time, and annual exports exceeded $50 billion for the first time.
Supplementary,
Supplementary question, Claudette Hauiti.
How is the higher growth outlook for the economy translating into higher wages for New Zealanders?
Honourable Bill
Speaker,
English.
Everyone's situation is different, and there are New Zealand families who are finding the economy challenging. But the benefits of a sustainably growing economy are tangible. Over the past 2 years, the average full-time wage, that is by the measure used to adjust national superannuation every year, the average full-time wage has increased from $51,700 to $54,700, an increase of $3,000. Treasury's preliminary budget forecasts show that the average wage will rise further to almost $62,300 by 2018, another increase of $7,600 over the next 4 years. The forecasts also show that around 170,000 more people will be working by 2018, at the same time as the average wage running $7,600 higher than today.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Claudette Hauiti.
To the Minister, what other steps will the government take in the budget to help support sustainable economic growth, more jobs and higher incomes over the next few years?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, two of the risks to the sustained economic recovery would be a blowout in government spending and a runaway housing market. The government is committed to thoughtful, targeted spending, not a large-scale spend-up which would put pressure on interest rates for households and businesses. We'll also continue to work to increase the supply of land and new housing to the housing market so that it can meet the unprecedented demand from the sharp particularly from the sharp turnaround in migration figures.
True, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Claudette Hauiti.
What measures would erode the good progress made in helping wages to increase faster than the cost of living over recent years?
Well, Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Bill
there's
English.
a number of possible measures, but I've seen one recently which involves cutting take-home pay by 15%, forcing New Zealanders into a compulsory savings scheme and contributions up to 15%. I heard a radio report yesterday where one person said, I probably have more mortgage debt than I've got long-term savings, to be honest, so part of the way we save is to pay down our mortgage. That was David Cunliffe, and he wants to take that choice away from all other Kiwis.
Order. Supplementary. Order. Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Given that Treasury are forecasting New Zealand's current account deficit under his economic settings will worsen in the coming years, is he concerned that his government is simply repeating the same mistakes of the last 4 decades with a worsening external deficit and whistling in the wind as more and more money flows into the housing market rather than the productive sector?
Honourable Bill
Mr.
English.
Speaker, well, we're certainly keen to avoid the mistakes of the last Labor government, on whose watch the current account deficit doubled from 4% to 8%. In fact, the Treasury does regularly forecast the current account deficit to get worse, but it keeps getting better. And I'm sure the member will be keen to see that laid out from on Budget Day.
Supplementary question. Order. Order. Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister understand that the ongoing damage being done to the New Zealand environment under the policies of his government will undermine New Zealand's economic performance in the long term?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no, because the statement isn't correct. Under this government, we have introduced regulation of the EEZ, which did not exist before. There was no environmental regulation in our larger economic zone in the ocean, one of the largest in the world. Now it is now comprehensively regulated. And secondly, through a collaborative process in which a lot of the supporters of the Members' Party have participated through the Land and Water Forum, we are introducing comprehensive regulation of the quality of our fresh water. That has never been done before, and it's designed to ensure we get the right balance between the use of our natural resources, our environmental quality and our economic opportunities.
Order. Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Minister understand that under the water regulations promulgated by his government, New Zealand rivers can have 4.5 times as much nitrogen as the Yangtze River in China? And how does he think that will affect New Zealand's brand being clean and green?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, no, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with that. There has just been an extensive consultation with the public, and prior to that with all the interest groups who wanted to participate, about exactly what the standards of fresh water quality should be. Certainly there are some challenges, but there is general agreement on what those bottom lines ought to be, what exceptions there could be to them, and we hope that the member will have the opportunity to support this government in legislating and regulating for the first time ever for a comprehensive framework for the quality of fresh water in every water body in New Zealand.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Does the Minister understand that the water regulations his government is proposing, those regulations would make water so toxic that it would not be safe to swim in and it would only be safe to wade in, because it is a wading standard rather than a swimming standard? And how well does he think that will go down in our export markets for our 100% pure, clean and green brand?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the member is trying to dramatise this issue for his own political benefit. The fact is that we are setting up a process that will allow New Zealanders, community by community, to grapple with the hard issues of what the quality of their local fresh water supply ought to be, and the member's description of the existing or proposed quality is simply wrong. There has been plenty of public debate about this. There will be plenty more. In the end, it will be decided community by community, consistent with some national bottom lines.
Question number 2, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks